Motions 7.1 School Uniforms, moved by Councillor Drummond and seconded by Councillor Curran. Councillor Drummond, please.
Thank you. School uniform was introduced to our schools to increase pride in each school and to encourage a sense of belonging, but it was also introduced to reduce the peer pressure felt by parents and carers and children to compete with brand names and the newest things. School uniform was meant to level the playing field between all, so no child was targeted or left feeling like they had to keep up. It was so everybody would be wearing the same and there was no room for anything else. Since the introduction of school uniforms, some schools have required or requested that uniforms have logos embroidered on them. Over the years, the cost of embroidered jerseys, sweatshirts, polo shirts and t-shirts have become far more expensive than buying the plain equivalent from retails on online stores. This is partly due to the fact that there is little or no competition in this market. This group has raised before and believed that this was going to be reviewed before summer last year, and yet we're here a year on and nothing has changed and people are still paying 3 or 4 times more than needed per child. Simply to have a badge embroidered. We have a paper coming up today on the cost of living. We all know how difficult times are, and yet people are still being asked to pay exorbitant amounts for uniform that were introduced partly to combat the cost of clothes young people were wearing to school. This simply can't go on, and we as a group believe that this is unfair and against one of the main and most important principles and purposes of the introduction of school uniform. To rectify the problem, Midlothian Council agrees that all schools must immediately stop requiring or requesting our parents and carers to purchase school clothing with embroidered school uniform. So that's my motion. Thanks.
Councillor Curran.
Thanks, Provost, and I'll formally second that.
Thank you. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Provost. I totally agree that it's essential to save families money wherever we can. However, I wonder if it's too late for this year. During the cost of living crisis, I think it's absolutely imperative that Midlothian Council looks at all the costs associated with the school day, and this discussion has been ongoing for some time. We had a very informative briefing by head teachers on how schools were tackling poverty and the measures they were putting in place to alleviate that and help parents, carers, pupils to keep costs of going to school to the minimum. And I just wondered, could I suggest we take a report to the Cost of Living Task Force to do the work and then come back to Council with everyone's views? I think it's really important that we ensure we talk to and listen to the voices of the young people, the families, the school, the staff, who are also involved in this, and that we still empower the schools. And I think that's part of the Parental Involvement Act and UNCHR. And just for noting, these discussions have been going on for a while at COSLA and the Scottish Government, and it's just not the cost of the school uniform, but it's also the comfort. Like ASN children in particular may have preferences about the choice of material, its identity, choice, safety, consequence and gender. So because of all these things are tied in with the school uniform, I wondered if we could defer any decisions and get all the feedback and consultations from the schools and the pupils and the parents. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Scott. Councillor Parry.
Yeah, I'm just going to, sorry, excuse me, Provost, briefly comment on this. I totally agree with this motion. I think Councillor Drummond's right. We talked about this a year ago and we probably should have narrowed this down a wee bit. And I appreciate there's a consultation ongoing at the moment with young people, schools and parents, and there's stuff going on with COSLA and Scottish Government. I don't think we should wait for any of that. I do think there's probably some stuff that we need to sort out around procurement, making sure if we went and procured it that we wouldn't take the money out the kind of local circular economy. But I think it would be good to do the work on this, bring it back, get everything sorted, and ideally with a specific timescale, because I wouldn't like to be sitting here a year from now having not done anything with it at all, other than that.
Thank you, Council Leader. Councillor Scott, can I just get you to turn your mic off, please? Thank you. Councillor Drummond and Councillor Curran. Councillor Curran.
Thanks, Provost. I understand the sort of holistic approach that's been referred to, but for want of a better phrase, this is a quick win. This is something we can do now, and it'll have a positive effect, certainly in the pocket anyway, for parents and carers and pupils for a new school term. If we delay this, it's not going to happen for the school year 24-25. So I suppose my only question would be, what would be the barriers to accepting this motion today? I mean, I see from one of the comments from Newbattle High School that it mentions themselves, and I completely agree, that it costs for badged uniforms, jumpers, blazers is exaggerated, and I couldn't agree more. And actually go on to make a further valid point that these clothing items can't be used in the evenings or at weekends. It's purely for school. So again, I don't like the phrase, but it's a quick win. It's something we can do now to help parents and carers who are facing financial constraints. So I'm inclined to go with the motion at this time.
Councillor Parry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'll just clarify. I probably wasn't clear enough. I think Councillor Cullen's absolutely right. Quick one. Didn't disagree with the motion at all. Happy to pass it today. I do think there's a question around procurement, like how quickly could we actually procure these items. I'm not sure the council's perhaps ready to do that. That might take a wee bit of time. I know I've certainly got my daughter's uniform, and I think most people probably will have uniform by now. I think another quick one that we could do at the moment, because like it or not, it is going to take a bit of time to come back and sort of procurement and stuff like that. But I do think in the meantime, we could be saying to schools, this work is going on in the background. Could you kind of go easy if somebody turns up, you know, in their, you know, and not in, as long as they're in school colours, for example, does it really matter if it's a plain hoodie for Primark or something? I don't think it does. So I completely agree, and I'm sorry if I made it sound like I wasn't. It's just there will be some issues arising from it, but very happy to agree.
I'll take Councillor Virgo and then Councillor Milligan.
Thanks, Provost. And yeah, I agree with the points made. But I suppose my slight concern with it, with the idea of the quick win, is linked to what Councillor Drummond said as kind of the introductory piece to the motion, that it's supposed to be about reducing inequality, or the appearance of inequality, certainly, and doing it at this stage, like the council leader, you know, I've been part of the S1 transition work this year. And a lot of the kind of events where parents have been asked to kind of get the branded or the embroidered stuff have already happened. Are we potentially setting up a situation where half of the people are going in with the branded stuff, the embroidered stuff, not the branded stuff, and half aren't, and thereby kind of setting that difference at that point. And so, well, absolutely, I want the quick win. Absolutely, you know, I want this to happen. It's been in the cost of living task force. It's been going around in there. All the work that has been driven by the cost of living task force, and it will report back to the cost of living task force about how this can work in practice. Just wondering whether that's the danger here of making it, you know, an immediate stop to requiring or requesting, is that there will be a significant cohort who have already got it, and the remainder who haven't, and then we're setting up a dichotomy there. That's my concern with this.
Thank you. Councillor Milligan, please.
Yeah, I wasn't going to make another point, but I was just going to put this to David. There will be a small cohort who simply can't afford it this year. And if we continue along the line with we'll absolutely know who they are, because they'll be the ones in the school that didn't have it. There'll be a grouping, a very small grouping, of people who, if they buy this for their children, will have to do without heating, will have to do without food, will not be able to pay the mortgage or the rent, or will have to give up on something else to buy this. And especially if you've got several children. Because the first question I had when this motion was suggested was, why are we going with 6? I'm a grandparent, and I know the amount of times I pick up my grandkids that they've lost their jersey, or their jersey is ripped, or it's got paint on it that you can't get off. So I'm thinking, you're not getting through a season with 6. Neil, or if you're being exceptionally lucky, my grandkids start off with 6 every year, and end up by Christmas, they've either outgrown them, torn them, ripped the sleeves, or they've lost them. and Lostam's the biggest culprit. So I'm going to be very clear on that, David. On your own argument there, if we continue along that line, there's going to be a cohort of kids that are going to go into schools that can't afford it. And they will be absolutely identified, because there will be a very small cohort of children that do that. I wasn't sure, Kelly, on the point you were making on procurement, because one of the points we've been making about this is there has been no procurement process on this. None whatsoever. And everything else, if the school parent council want to go and buy something for the school, they've got to follow the procurement route. But for some reason or other, every school just seems to have done the same thing here. And there's one company that I think most schools use, and when you actually look at it, and the prices that we were using on this, we're actually using their sale for this year as the difference. And we've used Marks and Spencer's, a relatively, certainly you couldn't call them a lower end of the chain store. They're a middle to higher end of the chain store. So you could actually save a lot more money. And I think it just makes sense for us to do away with this embroider stuff. I can see in the report we got late last night, forwarded by Helen. I'm really surprised that the director didn't see fit to forward that information around all elected members. However, it was forwarded by the education spokesman to us all. And you can see that there's a lot of schools in there saying we didn't ask your pupils or parents to buy these uniforms because they're massively too expensive. They're not worth the money, and you can't use them outside school time. They're of no use. So we can genuinely see no reason whatsoever to say here that we just simply ask the schools today to stop asking and certainly stop requiring people to use branded embroidered school uniform.
Councillor McEwen.
Thanks, Provost. I totally endorse what Councillor Mulligan is just saying. At a previous committee meeting which I attended, GP, if I can allude to that, we already were given a report about attendance at school. We, as a council, should be breaking down every barrier to ensure and encourage our pupils to attend school. And I see this as a barrier. I fully support this motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we have the motion moved by Councillor Drummond and seconded by Councillor Curran. Is anyone otherwise minded? No. Okay, we move on.